before the mountains were formed, before oceans touched the sand, before the first human breathed air, before the sun burned in the sky, there was God, not created, not formed, not taught, not helped, just God. The God of wonders, the God of perfection, the one who stood in eternity and spoke galaxies into existence with words, the one who told darkness where to stop, the one who placed stars in the heavens so perfectly that they never collide, the one who created the human body with such impossible precision that science still cannot fully explain it. And somehow that same God knows your name. The God who controls the universe still watches over you while you cry at night. The God who commands angels still hears the silent prayers you never say out loud. The God of heaven still cares about the details of your life. That is not ordinary, that is wonder. Psalm 147:5 says, "Great is our Lord and mighty in power. His understanding has no limit." Human understanding has limits. Human strength has limits. Human patience has limits. Human love has limits, but God, no limits. That is why He is the God of wonders, because wonders are what happen when unlimited power touches impossible situations. When God enters a situation, natural laws bow, fear break, chains fall, dead things rise again. He's not just a good God, He's not just a loving God. He is a terrifyingly powerful God. The kind of God who parted an entire sea overnight. The kind of God who shut the mouths of lions. The kind of God who walked inside fire with His people. The kind of God who raised the dead with a single command. And the frightening thing about His power is this: He never struggles to do miracles. Humans struggle. God speaks. That is the difference. Genesis says, "Let there be light." And light obeyed instantly. No delay, no confusion, no resistance. Because creation recognizes the voice of its creator. The wind obeys Him. The oceans obey Him. Demons obey Him. Death obeys Him. And still, despite our rebellion, despite our pride, despite our sin, God still loves us. That is perfection. Not human perfection, not fake perfection, not social media perfection, divine perfection. A holy God still choosing to love broken people. You know what is terrifying about God's perfection? He has never made a mistake, not once. Every star is placed intentionally. Every season arrives on time. Every promise He speaks comes to pass. Humans fail promises daily. God never has. Numbers 23:19 says, "God is not human, that He should lie. If God said it, it will happen. If God promised it, it will come to pass." Because perfection cannot fail. And maybe that is what someone needs to hear today. Your life may feel chaotic. Your heart may feel exhausted. Your future may feel uncertain. But God's perfection is not shaken by your confusion. He still knows what He is doing. Even now, even in this season, even in the middle of pain, the God of perfection never loses control. That means your suffering is not random. Your waiting is not meaningless. Your tears are not invisible. God sees everything, every betrayal, every disappointment, every sleepless night, every silent prayer. And while you think heaven is silent, God is still moving. Because sometimes the greatest wonders happen invisibly before they happen publicly. Seeds grow underground before trees appear. Babies grow hidden before birth. Preparation happens in secret, and God works the same way. Before David wore a crown, He fought lions privately. Before Joseph entered the palace, he survived prison secretly. Before Moses parted seas, he spent years in wilderness. God prepares deeply before He reveals publicly, because the God of perfection does not create unfinished victories. Everything He does carries purpose. Ecclesiastes 3:14 says, "I know that everything God does will endure forever." Everything God does, not some things, everything. That means when God restores someone, the restoration is real. When God heals, He heals deeply. When God opens doors, no devil can shut them, because God's works carry eternity inside them. Humans create temporary things. God creates eternal impact. That is why one touch from God can permanently change a life. One encounter with Jesus transformed Saul into Paul. One moment in God's presence turned Moses from insecure into fearless. One miracle changed blind Bartimaeus forever, because when the God of wonders touches a human life, nothing stays the same. And maybe that is why the enemy fights people so aggressively before breakthrough, because darkness recognizes what heaven placed inside you. The devil does not waste attacks on empty people. He attacks purpose, he attacks destiny, he attacks people carrying spiritual weight. But hear this carefully. The God of wonders never loses battles. Never. Hell has never defeated him. Darkness has never surprised him. Death itself could not hold him. When Jesus rose from the grave, heaven made a statement to the universe. God remains undefeated forever. That resurrection was not just power. It was perfection, perfect love defeating sin, perfect holiness defeating darkness, perfect authority crushing death forever. And today, that same resurrection power is still alive, still healing, still delivering, still restoring. The problem is many people know about God, but they do not know him personally. There is a difference. You can hear sermons daily and still be spiritually empty. You can attend church weekly and still not fully trust God. But when you truly encounter him, everything changes. Because the presence of God destroys illusions. Pride breaks in his presence. Fear weakens in his presence. Depression trembles in his presence. Demons flee in his presence. Why? Because perfection entered the room. Darkness cannot survive pure light, and God is pure light. 1 John 1-5 says, God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. No darkness at all, no corruption. No evil, no weakness, no failure. Complete perfection. Humans cannot even comprehend that level of holiness. Our minds are too limited. The angels around God's throne cry, holy, 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 day and night. Not because heaven lacks words, but because God's glory is too endless to describe fully. Imagine being so perfect that eternity itself cannot exhaust your greatness. That is our God, the God of wonders, the God of perfection and still. He invites ordinary people into relationship with him. That should humble every human being alive. The creator of heaven wants intimacy with his creation. Not religion, relationship. Not performance, surrender. Not fake spirituality, real devotion. God is not looking for perfect humans. He is looking for surrendered hearts. People think perfection means never failing. God's perfection means he can take broken people and still create beautiful stories from shattered pieces. Look at Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times, failed publicly, collapsed under pressure, yet Jesus restored him and used him powerfully. That is divine perfection. Only God can turn failure into ministry. Only God can turn pain into purpose. Only God can turn wounds into testimonies. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. All things, even betrayal, even heartbreak, even rejection, even seasons that nearly destroyed you. The God of perfection wastes nothing. Humans throw broken things away. God restores them. And maybe someone listening feels broken beyond repair. You smile publicly, but bleed privately. You worship publicly, but struggle secretly. You tell people I'm okay while your soul feels exhausted. But listen carefully. God is not intimidated by your brokenness. He already knew every flaw before he chose to love you. That is what makes grace so powerful. Jesus did not die for perfect people. He died for sinners, for the weak, for the ashamed, for the addicted, for the lost, for the exhausted, for all of us. And through the cross, God revealed both his wonders and his perfection together. The wonder of his power, the perfection of his love, because only a perfect God could love imperfect people this deeply. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. Think about that sacrifice. Jesus was mocked, spit on, beaten, rejected, crucified, the perfect Son of God suffering for guilty humanity, and still he said, Father, forgive them. That is not human love. That is divine perfection. Humans seek revenge. God offers mercy. Humans keep score. God offers grace. Humans give up quickly. God remains faithful, even when we fail him repeatedly. And maybe that is why worship matters so much. Because when you truly understand who God is, Worship becomes unavoidable. How can you encounter this level of glory and remain casual? How can you realize the creator of galaxies loves you personally and stay spiritually asleep? The God of wonders deserves more than half-hearted devotion. He deserves your attention, your obedience, your heart, because everything you are exists because of Him. Without God, no breath, no life, no future, no hope. Right now, there are people listening who feel distant from God. You pray less than before. Worship feels harder. Faith feels weaker. Life drained you spiritually. But God has not abandoned you. The God of wonders still pursues His children, even in wilderness seasons, even in dry seasons, even in painful seasons. He is still there. Sometimes God allows wilderness because distractions disappear there. In wilderness, you learn dependence. In wilderness, pride breaks. In wilderness, intimacy deepens. Moses encountered God in wilderness. Elijah heard God in wilderness. Jesus fasted in wilderness. Never underestimate hidden seasons. God does some of His deepest work in isolation, because before God elevates people publicly, He transforms them privately. The God of perfection cares about character more than image. Humans focus on appearances. God looks at hearts. People can fool crowds. Nobody fools God. He sees motives, intentions, thoughts, hidden struggles, and somehow He still loves us completely. That should destroy pride instantly. Everything good in us came from Him. The wisdom you have, God gave it. The opportunities you have, God allowed them. The strength you have, God sustained it. Without Him, we are nothing, but with Him, everything becomes possible. Luke 1:37 says, "For nothing will be impossible with God." Nothing. Not your healing, not your future, not your restoration, not your breakthrough. The God of wonders specializes in impossible situations. That is why He waited until Lazarus was dead 4 days before arriving, because human impossibility creates room for divine glory. If humans can explain it fully, they take credit, but when only God can do it, He receives glory alone. And maybe that is why your situation feels impossible right now, because God is preparing to reveal His power in a way only He can receive credit for. Do not lose faith now. The God of wonders is still working behind scenes you cannot see. Angels still move, prayers still rise, miracles still happen. Heaven is not inactive. Sometimes answers delay because preparation is still happening. God's timing is part of His perfection. If He answers too early, you may destroy what you prayed for. He develops you while preparing the blessing. That is why waiting seasons matter. Waiting teaches trust. Waiting deepens faith. Waiting kills pride. And when the answer finally arrives, you realize God was protecting you all along. The God of perfection never arrives late. Humans panic because humans see time differently, but God sees eternity. What feels delayed to you may actually be perfect timing from heaven's perspective. Think about Joseph. Prison felt unfair. Delay felt painful. Silence felt confusing. But every delay positioned him correctly for destiny. If Joseph left prison too early, he would have missed the palace season. God knew exactly when to move, and He still does. Your life is not random. The pain had purpose. The waiting has purpose. The closed doors have purpose. The God of perfection is writing a story bigger than your current understanding. Trust Him, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Job lost everything, children, wealth, health, and still He said, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." That kind of worship terrifies hell, because Satan expects people to love God only for blessings. But true believers love God for who He is, the God of wonders, the God of perfection. Not just the God who blesses, not just the God who heals, but God Himself. Because once you truly know Him, you realize His presence is the greatest gift, more valuable than money, more valuable than fame, more valuable than success. Without God's presence, success becomes empty. People chase wealth thinking it will satisfy them. They chase relationships, status, attention, and still feel empty. Why? Because the human soul was designed for God. Only His presence satisfies completely. Psalm 16:11 says, In your presence there is fullness of joy. Fullness, not temporary happiness, not distraction, fullness. That is what the world desperately searches for but cannot find outside God. And maybe that emptiness you feel is not punishment. Maybe it is an invitation back to God, back to prayer, back to surrender, back to intimacy, because nothing matters more than knowing Him. One day money will disappear. One day fame will fade. One day earthly success will mean nothing. But God remains eternal forever. That is why salvation matters more than everything else. The God of wonders still restores people. The God of perfection still forgives sinners. No past is too dark. No mistake is too great. No life is too damaged for His mercy. The cross proved that forever, and right now, maybe God is calling someone deeper. Not surface-level Christianity, not occasional prayer, not emotional moments without transformation, real surrender. The kind where you say, God, even if everything else disappears, do not let me lose you. Because once you encounter the glory of God, nothing else compares. Not fame, not money, not applause, nothing. The God of wonders changes people permanently. He takes fearful people and makes them bold. He takes weak people and gives them strength. He takes lost people and gives them purpose. And He is still doing it today. Right now, in this generation, in broken homes, in hidden rooms, prisons and churches and hospitals, in silent midnight prayers, God is still moving, still healing, still speaking, still saving, still restoring because He never changes. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Same power, same holiness, same love, same glory. The God of wonders, the God of perfection. Forever